good morning and welcome to Government House. My name is Hugh Borrowman. I have the honour to be Official Secretary to Her Excellency the Governor, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies today. Before we get underway, can I please invite you to join me in thanking the Royal Australian Navy Band for their support to today's activities. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last of 6 ceremonies to present Australian honours, most of which were announced on the Queen's birthday in June and which now take place in the shadow of her sad passing. Condolence books are available in the State Dining Room after the ceremony. The official party today is Ms Sarah Andrews MP, the member for Gibson, representing the Premier, Dr James Mookie AM, the Lieutenant Governor of South Australia, the Honourable Laura Curran MLC, representing the Leader of the Opposition, Lieutenant Commander Danielle Echeverria RAN, representing the Commanding Officer of HMAS Encounter, Lieutenant Colonel Ilona Horan, representing the Australian Army Area Representative South Australia, Group Captain Alison McCarthy, representing the Senior Australian Defence Force Officer Edinburgh, Assistant Commissioner Craig Patterson APM, representing the Commissioner of Police. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Mrs Emma Ranieri, the Commissioner for Public Sector Employment. If you are able, please be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency the Governor. Remain standing for the Vice-Regal salute and for 1 minute's silence. Please be seated.
Gana bogana aria, gana miana aria, yaicha miana aria, kumatana yartananku. I acknowledge that we are holding this investiture ceremony today on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and I pay my respects to the elders. Welcome everyone, it's wonderful to see you today on this last of our investiture ceremonies this week. And of course we've just observed a minute's silence in honour and remembrance of our late Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We've, in other parts of Government House, members of the public are signing condolence books and laying floral tributes. In this time of sadness, of course, we pay tribute to Her Majesty's lifelong service. She was always very attentive to the recognition of service in others, and that is what we are doing today. And it's why the Premier is represented, it's why the Lieutenant Governor is here, why the Leader of the Opposition is represented, and why the service chiefs behind me are also either here or represented, and of course the heads of many of the organisations that recipients of awards in the Order of Australia come from. The awards themselves, as many of you know, are announced twice yearly, on our National Day, Australia Day, and on the Queen's Birthday holiday. That's been the case since awards in the Order of Australia were instituted in 1975. Of course, this is the last year that they will be made on the Queen's Birthday holiday, and we'll look forward next year to welcoming recipients announced on the King's Birthday. The awards in the Order of Australia, of course, are made to those who have demonstrated outstanding service or exceptional achievement. And as Governor, I've been deeply moved in the course of this week by the service of so many South Australians in so many different ways. When you this morning hear the citations read, not only for the person you're here to support, but of all of the others, I think you'll come away with a sense of what extraordinary service it is. And it's extraordinary too because recipients of these awards typically don't seek recognition, and often, even though they've got an inkling that something might be coming, they are surprised when they actually see the list. To those of you who are here in support, you're the people who deserve thanks too, because you've often supported the most extraordinary service. You are the ones who are most loved and who the recipients want to be here today. Some of you will have been regulars at Government House over the years, but for anyone here for the first time today, please a particular welcome. We want you to feel comfortable, even though there's a degree of formality about this. It's also deeply personal. And the final point I'd make is that all of our award recipients are here because another Australian saw in them outstanding service or exceptional achievement and nominated them. And of course, there are many, many other Australians, including here in South Australia, who are worthy of such recognition. And I encourage you to think about them and not hesitate to go through what is as streamlined an application process, the Governor-General assured me last week, as it can possibly be, and it's going to be made even easier, I am told, as well. So that's every encouragement for you, but for now, Official Secretary, over to you.
Your Excellency, the Public Service Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Associate Professor Thomas James Dodd is recognised for outstanding public service and world-class innovation and leadership in pathology services across South Australia.
Welcome, Professor Dodd. Welcome.
Associate Professor Dodd is a committed and passionate leader of patient care. He has ensured clinical excellence while driving improvements in the performance, quality and safety of pathology services across South Australia's public and private health sectors. Appointed as Clinical Services Director for SA Pathology less than a year before the outbreak of COVID-19, he ensured the organisation was exceptionally well placed to manage the demands of the pandemic, and he played a crucial role in the state's response. This included setting up an in-house testing platform to maintain high testing numbers despite worldwide reagent shortages, opening Australia's first drive-through testing site at the Repatriation General Hospital, and a world-first detection dog trial at Adelaide Airport. He also established a dedicated domiciliary care service critical in protecting vulnerable people, including those in residential care facilities. Associate Professor Dodd's outstanding leadership and world-class innovation have benefited all South Australians, helping to keep them safe throughout the pandemic. Associate Professor Thomas James Dodd. Ms. June K. Homan is recognised for outstanding public service in leading complex ICT system services for the Australian Government. Ms. Homan has made a sustained contribution through the delivery of meaningful benefits to the Australian public, most notably by improving government ICT systems delivering services for people receiving welfare. Her leadership and project delivery skills have supported Australia's economic, health and social well-being through key initiatives. These include delivering ICT systems, enabling people to manage their financial circumstances more effectively through difficult periods, as well as providing leadership across teams responding to the government request to pause welfare debt raising and recovery actions as the impacts of COVID-19 were being realised. At the same time, Ms. Homan led teams to deliver payments of more than $722 million to 368,000 people, while managing the changes COVID-19 was making to the community and the workplace. She has worked tirelessly, delivering additional ICT capabilities to facilitate the controlled resumption of welfare debt management services for government. Ms. Homan is highly regarded as a valued member of the Services Australia team, with her project delivery and leadership skills generating exceptional outcomes for both the Australian Government and citizens. Ms. June K. Homan. Mr. David Glenn Reynolds is recognised for outstanding public service on South Australia's economic and financial response during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Reynolds led the implementation of South Australia's economic and financial response during the pandemic while fulfilling his duties as then Chief Executive of the Department of Treasury and Finance, leading 1,800 employees. During his more than 20-year career within the South Australian Public Service, Mr. Reynolds has become known for his personal integrity and well-considered, frank and timely advice. A member of the government's COVID-19 Transition Committee and its successor groups, he provided a balanced view to addressing the health, economic and social implications of the state's response. Mr. Reynolds' leadership helped to shape the $4 billion economic stimulus package, which also leveraged a further $1 billion in Commonwealth, local government and business investment, the largest stimulus program in the state's history. The level of responsiveness and ability to lead people through complex and challenging times is a hallmark of his professionalism. His innovation during the pandemic in mobilising employees for community needs while continuing business as usual services by the Department of Treasury and Finance has created a more mobile and flexible workforce. Mr. Reynolds was recently appointed as the Chief Executive of the Department for Trade and Investment. Mr. David Glenn Reynolds. Ms. Fiona Ward is recognised for outstanding public service in child protection and community services for children and families in South Australia. Ms. Ward has dedicated more than 3 decades to improving outcomes for children and young people across child protection, community support and family services. A qualified social worker, her 32-year public service career has encompassed Families SA, Aboriginal Affairs and Reconciliation, and her current position as Deputy Chief Executive of the Department for Child Protection. Ms. Ward has achieved significant outcomes in both child protection and Aboriginal affairs, demonstrating a strong commitment to the voice and agency of vulnerable and marginalised people. Known as a skilled negotiator and strategic thinker, she is capable of navigating difficult political terrain and developing innovative and workable solutions to complex challenges. Ms. Ward has also led national reform initiatives, including the development of Safe and Supported, the National Framework for Protecting Australia's Children 2021 to 2031. She has also been instrumental in achieving key transformative changes, ranging from the Stolen Generations Reparations Scheme to constitutional recognition for South Australia's First Peoples, as well as the successful negotiation of the Commonwealth State Community APY Lands Regional Partnership Agreement. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Ms. Ward led the Department for Child Protection's response, helping its staff to embrace new technologies and agile processes to ensure support and service continuity for children and young people in care. Ms. Fiona Ward. Ms. Janet Gay Willoughby is recognised for outstanding public service in developing public urban spaces and a community gardening movement for the city of Charles Sturt. Ms Willoughby is the Open Space Community Planner at the City of Charles Sturt Council. The role is a culmination of 3 decades of working and holding senior positions in horticulture and arboriculture at the council. Under her guiding hand, a growing network of more than 20 active and committed gardening groups and new formal and informal community gardens have emerged across the council area. These groups are reportedly creating a deep sense of community and important social connections alongside improving the local environment through a range of greening and gardening activities. She combines her expertise and technical knowledge with natural leadership, drive and passion for gardening, and often voluntarily assists and visits many of the area's community gardening groups after hours and on weekends. Ms Willoughby has also emerged as a role model within the wider local government sector and hosts weekend tours for interested visitors who are keen to create their own garden group networks. Ms Janet Gay Willoughby. Your Excellency, the Australian Fire Service Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Ms Fiona Lenore Dunstan is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Country Fire Service. Ms Dunstan led the CFS and state public information functions for 18 years and is regarded as a national leader in community safety and engagement. During that time, she deployed to numerous local and interstate fires, including the New South Wales fires in 2019. A champion in community safety, she is a leader in the National Council for Fire and Emergency Services and its Community Engagement Technical Group and National Warnings Group, which are driving the establishment and implementation of a new Australian warning system to bring clear, consistent and effective public information and warnings across a range of hazards. She also led the community safety messaging for the new Australian Fire Danger Rating System project and led South Australia's Health Emergency Management Team's Public Information Cell during the state's initial response to COVID-19. Her commitment to improving public information saw her elevated to chairs of multiple nationally significant boards and committees, establishing South Australia as a national leader in the field. Ms Fiona Lenore Dunstan. Mr Brendan Patrick McAvoy is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Country Fire Service. Mr McAvoy has made an outstanding contribution to the South Australian community for nearly 40 years. Over that time, he has participated in the control and management of many hundreds of emergencies. Serving at the Upper Sturt, Stirling and Burnside CFS brigades, he has held many operational and administrative roles at local and state levels. Through the provision of high-quality training to fire service personnel across hundreds of courses and specialist subjects, his legacy is a high standard of education benefiting thousands of firefighters. Mr McAvoy has been instrumental in advancing atmospheric monitoring capability and hazardous material responses within the CFS. His knowledge of the management of dangerous goods has been an asset to all emergency agencies in South Australia. Mr. Brendan Patrick McAvoy. Mr. Nathan James Watts is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Country Fire Service. Mr. Watts exemplifies service to the community and has steadfastly set examples for others to follow. As a volunteer firefighter leader, he has shown dedication and concern for those he leads and serves as a high-profile advocate and mentor for volunteer firefighters across South Australia. Among the many incidents he has attended, he led personnel through the Cuddly Creek Fire in 2019-20 and contributed to saving lives, homes and businesses. Mr. Watts has dedicated himself to improving the system for volunteers to make them safer and more successful. He offers ideas and views for improvement which have influenced many service improvements, ultimately leading to enhanced public and firefighter safety. Mr. Nathan James Watts. Your Excellency, the Ambulance Service Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Mrs. Julie Margaret Ape is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. Since joining the SA Ambulance Service nearly 27 years ago, Mrs. Ape has provided outstanding support and care to the Kadina community and fellow volunteers across the state. This has been achieved through operational service, both as a career ambulance officer and now volunteer, and through her role as a peer support officer. She has held various other positions including volunteer team leader, training coordinator, regional medical transport officer at Wallaroo, and work health and safety representative. The cornerstone of the Kadina volunteer roster, she has provided support to her community and played a part in saving many lives in regional South Australia. Her commitment to the service's peer support program has made a significant difference to her colleagues, spending countless hours supporting them through difficult cases and experiences to ensure they were well supported. Mrs. Julie Margaret Ape. Mr. John Lyndon Noble is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. With great leadership, attitude and exceptional clinical knowledge, Mr. Noble has provided outstanding support to patients in South Australia through the South Australian Ambulance Service. A passionate patient advocate, he has spearheaded initiatives that support the needs of other clinicians and volunteers, including contributing to the introduction of extended care paramedics. Originally a volunteer ambulance officer, he became a paramedic in 1988, later becoming an air attendant, providing medical services as a single clinician all over regional South Australia with the air wing of the ambulance service. In 1997, he qualified as an intensive care paramedic. He became a clinical team leader in 2003, managing a station and providing the clinical support and training for staff. He is currently an extended care paramedic. In 2007, after returning from a role in the United Kingdom, he created the Single Paramedic Response Intervention, or SPRINT program, in which he has continued to develop and participate. Mr. John Lyndon Noble. Mr. Sean Andrew Wales is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. An exceptional paramedic and leader, Mr. Wales has been with the SA Ambulance Service for 18 years and is currently the operational manager of the largest metropolitan work group, Metro Central. He provided outstanding support and contributions to the COVID-19 response and managed the initial incident management team, mounting the response after the first case in South Australia. Mr. Wales then assisted with vaccination recording and reporting, shared knowledge of complex clinical and operational requirements, undertaking data collection and compliance while maintaining his operational role. His ability to bring an appreciation of frontline paramedicine concerns and issues to the incident management team and taking the detail of COVID-19 response to his region was most impressive. Mr. Sean Andrew Wales. Mrs. Catherine Ann Wright is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. The impact of COVID-19 on clinical management and response to patients was of course very significant. Ms. Wright's leadership contributed to staff and patient safety at a time of rapidly changing pressure on clinical operations. She held responsibility for aerosol generating procedures, managing cardiac arrest patients, varying personal protective equipment requirements, staff training and education, and increased intern recruitment. Starting with the SA Ambulance Service in 1998, she's an intensive care paramedic and currently the Acting Executive Director, Clinical Performance and Patient Safety Team. She has an extensive history of designing and implementing clinical change within the ambulance service and with external stakeholders. Mrs. Wright has demonstrated an exceptional commitment to the SA Ambulance Service that goes above and beyond the expectations of her role. Mrs. Catherine Ann Wright. Your Excellency, the Emergency Services Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Mr. Ben Mason Martin is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian State Emergency Service. Mr. Martin has been a rescue volunteer with the South Australian State Emergency Service since 2011 and has delivered countless courses ranging from storm and flood response, chainsaw operations, search and rescue, and first aid. As the District Training Coordinator for the Riverland District of South Australia, Ben is dedicated to training State Emergency Service volunteers so they have the skills and knowledge to respond to any emergency. He has worked tirelessly to rebuild the inland water search and rescue capability within the Riverland District. As a result of his efforts, the service was able to qualify 20 new crew members and 7 new skippers, significantly revitalising a waning capability in his district. His dedication and professionalism, combined with his easygoing nature and sense of humour, make him both highly respected and well-liked by staff and volunteers. His service, particularly over the last 18 months, has been far beyond that expected of any volunteer. Mr. Ben Mason Martin. Andrew Peter Sullivan is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian State Emergency Service. Mr. Sullivan joined the SES in 1993 as a volunteer cadet with the Campbelltown unit and now serves as Operations Response Manager. Deployed to the Cuddly Creek and Kangaroo Island bushfires during the catastrophic 2019-20 season, he also volunteered for deployment across 4 separate rotations over 21 days, supporting the South Australian Country Fire Service with the establishment and operation of base camp facilities for frontline emergency services personnel, functional support agencies, and a strike team leader logistics support. More recently, he has supported the State Emergency Service within the Ceduna Humani Hut team, assisting SA Health to establish a COVID-19 quarantine facility for the local Indigenous population. Mr. Sullivan is also part of the State Logistics Support Team, helping state headquarters with a wide range of tasks, including movement and maintenance of emergency fleet vehicles to various regions within South Australia for storm and flood events. Mr. Andrew Peter Sullivan. Your Excellency, the Australian Corrections Medal has been awarded to the following recipient. Mrs. Sky Marie Lambert is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Correctional Services of South Australia. Mrs. Lambert has provided outstanding clinical services within the Department of Correctional Services for 21 years, actively contributing to the Department's goals of reducing reoffending through the delivery of clinical services and the design of new rehabilitation programs. Highly valued and respected, Mrs. Lambert manages the clinical team in the Rehabilitation Programs branch, undertaking a complex job that requires a high degree of patience, resilience, empathy, professionalism, skill and intelligence. Joining the branch as a social worker and subsequently completing a clinical psychology master's degree, she has provided rehabilitation services to the most high-risk people in the prison system. Since 2020, she has been acting in the role of Manager, Rehabilitation Programs Branch, where she provides oversight and supervision of therapeutic programs for sexual and violent offenders. In addition to her core duties, she has been involved in a number of service improvement initiatives, such as the design and piloting of a specialist program for people with intellectual impairment. Mrs. Skye Marie Lambert. Your Excellency, the Medal of the Order of Australia has been awarded to the following recipient. Mr. Nicholas Papasahariacas is recognised for service to hospitality. When Chloe's restaurant closed its doors in 2019, after 30 years of a bastion of fine dining, it marked the closing chapter of an Adelaide icon. Its owner, restaurateur Nicholas Papasahariacas, originally from Crete, came to Australia in 1970 as a tourist and stayed. He started his Australian hospitality career as a sommelier before opening Walkerville's Le Paris restaurant, followed by Chloe's in 1985. Over the years, he has collected many food and beverage awards, including the Australian Good Food Guide's People's Choice Award in 2009 and the Restaurant and Catering Association Hall of Fame Award in 2001. Mr. Papasahariacas is a past president of the South Australia branch of the Restaurant and Catering Industry Association and former chair of the National Restaurant and Catering Awards. He has also been chair of the Food, Tourism and Hospitality Industries Skills Advisory Council SA and has been a member of a range of state government advisory committees. Mr. Nicholas Papasahariacas. Your Excellency, that concludes the presentations for this morning.